What is up, you guys? Today I am back with another video, and today I will be analyzing all of the Argentina locations from within the last 2 days of the GeoGuessr World Championships. There were actually quite a few, and I figured there were enough that I could make a video on this. Some of them were guessed very well, some of them weren't. But yeah, let's just get into the first one. This first one was from the Mu Sheena game, and so I think Sheena had a good guess on this one. But right off the bat, we have light blue car 2024 copyright, which is very common in and around Neuquen. And we have a bunch of poplars, which also makes quite a bit of sense. We're on a weird angle. I think Sheena had a useful sign here, but essentially, if I could go into Mapmaker real quick. Yeah, so basically, Neuquen, the area east where Mu ended up guessing, and the area north up to 25 de Mayo all have that type of coverage, but they can have varying road angles. I guess the further east part and the further north part can have weird angles. Aside from that, they're pretty uniform, but 25 de Mayo coverage came out earlier, so it's somewhat recognizable. I don't really know how to explain it, to be honest, but that was the first round. And yeah, I think Sheena got it kind of on the dot. Let's see. Yeah, so not a whole lot to say in that location. I think it's a pretty standard Neuquen with the car meta and the poplars and whatnot. But it's good to know which areas of coverage are possible. Mu's guess is not the worst, but Sheena's is a little bit better. And yeah, moving on to the second round of this, there was actually an Argentina round back-to-back in this Mu vs Sheena matchup, so this was the next round after the one I just showed you. This one is a pretty free round if you know the coverage, very mountainous and just very distinct, and while it does look quite northern, there's this region near Via Dique Florentino Ameghino, I think that's what it's called, near the dam, that if you've coverage checked in Gen 3 or Gen 4, it looks so extremely distinct, and you can even see the dam from there. So they do both end up getting it, but I'm going to show you kind of in Mapmaker what that type of location looks like. Via Dique Florentino Ameghino is slipping my mind, bro. It's here, okay, yeah. So I guess the dam is around here. But this type of landscape continues onto the road. I guess here is probably where they started, but it continues onto the road east of it for a little bit, like this landscape, and here until it becomes normal further down the road. As you can see, this looks a little bit different, but definitely a very distinct town. Good thing to know, and from what I remember, they did both end up getting this, and they did, but this is an extremely useful location to know, and yeah, that ended up with a 5K and a 4.999. So yeah. All right, the next Argentina location in the World Cup was this one between MK and Captain. They both missed a little bit on it, I think. But yeah, so starting off, we have poplar trees. So you can consider kind of Mendoza, San Juan, Neuquen areas with that, and we have white car. There's light blue car in Neuquen that can sort of look similar to white car, but this is pretty clearly white. And then some of the vegetation here, I would say, just does not quite align with Neuquen. I'm not really sure how to explain that. So it does make a lot more sense for more north. That being said, as we follow them along the road, you can tell we're kind of on a side road in the middle of nowhere, and I would say you don't really see, like, you would usually see more like around you, like if you're in San Juan or like downtown Mendoza. So then kind of the two big regions to consider in this case, I would say, are this region east of Mendoza here, where you get some roads that are, well, not like this, but you get some roads that are kind of, pretty far out there, I guess. like this type of thing, but still give the same vibe, because obviously in this round you couldn't see the mountains at all. And the other option is the San Rafael General Alvear area. I'm not sure if they were on north-south roads. It looks like maybe not, or maybe they are. But this is a very hard, small piece of coverage to know. But I'm pretty sure that if I go to my white blurred, there is some in San Juan, 2025, and there is a decent cluster here around General Alvear. So I might have picked that up. But I think the important thing to note is that the two kind of big options here are Eastern Mendoza and San Rafael General Alvear area. And I don't really remember where they guessed. I think they both kind of were equidistant or something. But yeah, so I think Captain was the red here. His guess makes a bit more sense. If I were him, I might have hedged a bit further outside of Mendoza, but his guess kind of makes sense. MK's not so much here, but this is definitely a good region to consider, and I think if they had scanned it a little bit more, they might have been able to line some stuff up. But yeah, that's about it for that round. The next Argentina round in the World Championships was again between MK and Captain in the second moving game. This one, MK got it on the dot. I think Captain made a bit of a blunder here. But if you look at it immediately, the mountains are very Santa Cruz. The vegetation, you see some short grass, but you don't see any big bushes or anything. Definitely should point you down to very far south. So this would probably be only possible in Tierra del Fuego or Santa Cruz. As with the architecture, kind of the plain white or red buildings are very southern. I mean, there's not a whole lot more to say. So I guess with these, if you're in a somewhat sizable town and you see these mountains, obviously they're not the Ushuaia Mountains. Your only two options really would be El Chalten, which was the correct answer, and MK got it, or parts of El Calafate. The mountain angles are different, and you can see the lake from one, but El Calafate is also a bit bigger. But these are really the only two options, and El Chalten just made a little more sense there. And so at the end of the day, if you do know the town there, that can be big points as a Sid win and MK the game. So yeah, that's a good one to know there. The next Argentina round in the World Cup was between Strafan and Amon, whatever. Either way, this one I think they ended up sort of getting to, but this is a very good round to know. So first of all, we have a Trident style pole, which is very common in Eastern Argentina. So I would say generally, I don't exactly remember the style, but I see them a lot in Buenos Aires, as well as Entre Rios, Corrientes, Chaco, and Formosa. Obviously, the only one this kind of really looks like, I would say, is Buenos Aires. And then, as you can see, it's just extremely flat, not too agricultural, so it's looking a bit more southern. And then around here where my marker is, you have the thin grass, like a little needle grass coming out there, or like, I don't really know what it's called. But you see this quite a lot in Buenos Aires, especially in southern Buenos Aires, so I started to call it Bahia Blanca grass, but it's really found almost everywhere, but it's just most common there, so if you're considering that area, that's a very good clue. And then it is kind of some of the new coverage, so it is something that if you've seen, you kind of just know. It has the light blue car, I think it is 24, and I think it was Strefan who ended up getting it right. But with it being Buenos Aires, the only option to really was that Buenos Aires? I guess it was. To think about is Viedma. The other option is Las Grutas. It has similar coverage. I can click through real quick and show you guys that. But yeah, it was on, I guess it was technically on the Rio Negro side, I guess. I think it was this road. But kind of all the roads around here look kind of the same. I don't really know how to explain it. They should all have a similar vibe. I'm sure you can kind of pick it up. But that is something good to know. I guess, wait, yeah, I guess the poles technically go down into Rio Negro, but Viedma was the best option, and Las Cortez was another option, just with the flatness and the landscape and whatnot. So yeah, that is why that location was there. The next Argentina location in the World Cup was between Blinky and Jamabi. This one came on their first moving game, and I think Blinky got this spot on as he does everything. But if you look at the roundup first, you can see there's poplars, so it has to be kind of in the region I mentioned. They're very common in urban Neuquen area along that river, and then Mendoza, San Juan. You could look pretty far into the distance, and in this round you wouldn't see any mountains. And overall, just the whole vibe of it, maybe it's the thing I can't really explain, feels more southern. So I think Jamabi ended up going for Mendoza, but wait, let me go back there. I think I did see a decorational palm maybe, which is more Mendoza, so that is kind of strange. But overall, the vibe is more Neuquén, and from there, it's just kind of a game of road angles. If you're on pretty straight roads, you can try and line it up. Trelew was also an option that he was thinking about. I guess that one makes sense too. But yeah, the kind of river area east of Neuquén makes a whole lot of sense, especially since Neuquén, the town itself, and like General Roca area have a very distinct and they have a very distinct road angle and very similar road angle throughout their towns, whereas the eastern part is kind of just random. So yeah. The next Argentina location was in the game between Lero and Finbar. This one was not the easiest. As we know, urban Argentina is very difficult, but I'm gonna skip ahead here a little bit, and I think, if you can see in this pan Lero's about to see, you can notice the Trident pole over here, and as I mentioned, that is around the eastern part of the country, most commonly in Buenos Aires, and seeing as this seemed like relatively agricultural, and it doesn't seem to have the characteristics of Entre Rios, as in slight hilliness and kind of bushiness. I would heavily lean towards Buenos Aires here, and yeah, there's not a whole lot more here. It looks kind of central to north, and then from there you kind of just gotta find towns, but obviously urban is a bit difficult. In this round, really the only confirmation was a pole, and yeah, they both were pretty near it, so the town seems relatively findable, but yeah, that's how you get to Buenos Aires on that location, aside from finding the useful info that says Buenos Aires on it. But yeah. The next Argentina location was between Lenley and Consis in their game, and Lenley made a really good guess here. This one was with all these decorational big palms over here, I guess if they'll zoom out you can see again, and just the type of road, the autumn coverage, everything feels pretty Mendoza San Juan. I think any pro level player would kind of get that, but from here what really helps is the fact that there's mountains west and east, which is very rare, and they're pretty small. They're like hills kind of, or like smaller mountains. So Lenley ended up getting this one right. In Mendoza, you can almost never see this combination of hills west and east unless you're in a specific spot, but Lenley looked at it, it didn't line up. In San Juan, you can have mountains west and east, but the mountains would be bigger. But there is this one spot here where Lenley guessed, where there's smaller hills west and east. So I'll just show you on the map making app. Yeah, so because the mountains were small and you were in that region where it's both west and east, the only possible options are kind of around this Potrerillos Uspayata area in Mendoza, or in this kind of Ulum department area. I think it was down here in the end, but those are kind of the only options with small hills both directions, um, and at that point you just would line it up, and as we can see, Lenley made a great guess with the Ulum department area lining up a little bit better. So yeah. This was the next Argentina round in the World Cup between Blinky and Lero. This round, I think they both kind of messed up on. We've had a lot of kind of southern or ish locations in the World Cup so far. So obviously we have the light car and we have poplar trees everywhere. And it just looks like kind of southish. The one big thing here is this hill over here in this direction on Blinky's side. Now, I think they both ended up going east of Neuquen, like the town, like along the river, which makes sense. But these like smallish hills with like exposed rock are very common in and around Trelew. So you can see them on Lero's screen here and Blinky's screen. And I don't know, I think Blinky considered it, but I think it's quite possible if you scan to get this location right. Those types of hills are possible in other places, but they're much more common around the Trelew area. And yeah, let me see if I can go into the map and find anything that looks quite like that. But yeah, the main thing was that sort of hill in the distance. Let's see. I mean, this is sort of an example. You just have smaller hills with exposed rock just about everywhere, it feels. Like here, again, too. I mean, they can look different depending on the situation. But it's just here again, a pretty consistent thing within Trelew. So yeah, that's why that location is over there. Alright, so this next Argentina round was between Debre and Lenley. This was one of the other sort of green Argentina locations, and yeah, if you look at it at first, I think, okay, let me go back. We have a D-type pole, which is where it looks like a T at the top. Those are somewhat regional. If they have even insulators on them, it is usually Buenos Aires. But if it is uneven, which it might have been in the location, I couldn't really tell, then you are more likely to be in Cordoba than other provinces, which this did end up being Cordoba. But more importantly, we have the white car with front blur here, which is very common in Cordoba, super common there. It is also really common in Entre Rios, but this location looks just way too agricultural for Entre Rios and way too flat. And so this really makes me lean towards Cordoba. It's pretty cleared out as well, and the white car with front blur does spill, so it's possible to find it in Buenos Aires or like southern Santa Fe. Now Lenley's guess here is unfortunate because I think he guessed, he is a decent Argentina player, but I think he guessed in a spot that usually probably either wouldn't have his car meta or at least wouldn't have like this type of landscape that's so cleared out for agriculture. So yeah, and then Debre makes a better guess. This type of location is generally southeastern Cordoba, potentially BA, potentially Pampa or southern Santa Fe, but his hedge works out really well, and he ends up being very close and winning the game on that. So that's why you learn your arch. Alright, this was the next Argentina location within the same matchup, Debre and Lenley. This one was incredibly difficult, to be honest. It does have blue car slightly exposed. It is more common some places than others. I would say it's slightly more common BA than other places, but it's really everywhere. I'm not sure if this is 25 or not, but especially if the blue is very slightly exposed, that's super common in more recent Buenos Aires coverage, as well as some older like Corrientes or northern Santa Fe coverage. But yeah, we're really just in a like kind of sizable town, urban town, and I think the standard for this is just to click Buenos Aires, like downtown maybe. I did consider Mar del Plata, but I mean there's really nothing you can do on an urban location such as this. I think Lenley did quite a bit of damage. I think his hedge just clicking downtown makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you think you can uh, uh, fucking line up the town, you can always give that a shot. But urban Buenos Aires is so tricky, so I don't blame them at all for this round. All right, this was the next Argentina round between Radu C, RC the GOAT, and Strefan. They both got this right, recognized it pretty quickly. Even from this first pan, you could, I mean, I guess if you're an experienced player, you can tell that this is probably Neuquen, specifically northwest Neuquen, in the like really mountainous parts. Has a lot of this coverage with, I don't know, clear skies, like dry hills, and you're like more in the hills rather than like viewing the hills from a distance. Also, it has the poplar trees, which are common in the mountains of Neuquen. It says it on the sign as well. But yeah, it's along these little river valley areas that look like this. I can show it on the map, but this is quite a distinct type of round. I'd say around Chosmalal there's a lot of these similar roads that are very learnable. They just have like a certain like soil or vibe to them that I think is quite gettable, as both of the players did get it indeed. But yeah, that's how they got that round. Alright, this was the next Argentina round, again between Radusi and Strefan. The first thing to note here is the vegetation is very northern, very compact, green. The soil as well, dark, fits for like Formosa or Salta area, as does the car meta. Blue completely blurred 24 is most common in Formosa, but extends into northern Salta. And so those were kind of the only areas possible. Now it looks a bit, I mean, I guess it makes sense for Formosa, but I think what Strefan saw here in the distance was a hill, and that made him confidently send up north near one of these towns. I think the hill must have been west, but yeah, I would say his guess makes some sense. RC guesses closer to Salta. I'd say with this type of soil and this car meta, you'd have to be a lot further north, maybe even within Jujuy, the green part of it, than where Radu clicked. But it's an okay guess. It really makes sense. It ends up being a lot further north, but I would say a lot of these towns from like Pichanal, Oran, up to like Max North have that similar vibe where you might see a slight hill west and you have the Formosa car meta, everything else fitting for north. So that's kind of how you'd get that round, but definitely Strefan's guess makes quite a bit of sense too. So yeah, that gave him almost 2,000 damage and kept him in the game a little bit longer. So yep. Alright, this was the next Argentina location. As you can see here, we start off on kind of a smaller road with green hills surrounding us, and a grainy road. Really only two options for that are some spots in Catamarca or some spots around Salta. Now, we do look to have a pole here that is slightly a fake meta, but is, I would say, more common in Salta. The kind of like wide one that has like bigger triangle connectors. It just looks like a huge triangle. But either way, this was a moving round. You can see the poles like here. I guess the triangle part is really like extra big, extra wide, I guess. But yeah, Deborah finds some interesting information. I'd say the hills aren't massive enough to be like right near Salta, so it's better to scan maybe either Jujuy, like just north of Salta province, or like Salta south/east of the town, which is where Deborah scans, and then he finds the town. Rio Piedras is a somewhat significant sized town, so good find, but yeah, that's how you would get that round. Alright, this next Argentina location was in the game for bronze between Strefan and Lero. To start off the game, they got this. This is just an amazing location. It is a super distinct bit of coverage. If you know it, I would have loved to have gotten this location. But yeah, I would say the sort of like lightish reddish soil definitely reminds me of La Rioja, or maybe, I guess it could border into San Juan or maybe a part of Catamarca, but La Rioja and San Juan for sure. And we're kind of just in these small hills. I guess you do see mountains in the background, which might have pointed them towards San Juan. But this kind of rocky dirt road is known in the Argentina community as the Mogna Road. Where is it again? It's up here. It's a super distinct bit of coverage. This is the coolest part of it, in my opinion. Has guardrails along a lot of it. Sometimes it's like really, really rocky. Sometimes it is less so. They might have been further on this stretch of the road. But as you can see, it's a pretty, yeah, I think they were closer here. It's a pretty distinct road. So if you know the road, you know, otherwise you can use soil or mountains to kind of get the region, and that's what they did. But yeah, it is potentially more pinpointable than even where they guessed, although they did make good guesses. And that's how you get that one. Alright, this was the next Argentina location, once again within the same game for bronze, Stefan and Lero. They both did get it as it was moving around, but I would say this is possible no move. So as you can see, we're in a little bit of a town, and I can't tell if that's vineyards on our side, but either way, to me it looks like kind of the central part of the western Andes, and we have a big dry mountain range west. This isn't something you would really see in a whole lot of places. I guess Mendoza, the mountain range, doesn't quite look like this. I would say San Juan, like downtown, it doesn't quite look like this. And then anything further north of that, with the exception of Jujuy, would just be too green for this. But there is a section of Catamarca that recently got coverage near like Fiambala, Tinogasta, and a bit more north of that, which is where this location ended up being. But yeah, this is very gettable just with the hill shape, the angle. It is in a kind of a valley, as there's also mountains east, I think. Or wait, maybe the big mountain range was east, and there's also mountains west, is what I meant to say. But they do both get to signs, which help them get this. But yeah, this little valley here near Fiambala has a lot of coverage kind of like this, and then you can see the two mountain ranges on our sides here, so that one made quite a bit of sense, and they did both end up getting it. So yeah, this was the next Argentina location between Stefan and Lero. They got a lot, I guess, but this was the NMPZ round. As you can see, well, I'll go back in time a bit. As you can see from their screens, this is the location, kind of around a city. I think Stefan guessed in Buenos Aires, Lero guessed in northern La Pampa. Now this is a super difficult location because it is urban. It does appear to be on a north-south grid, which is a bit strange. So I actually preferred Lero's guess on this, where he goes northern La Pampa. I mean, it is a bit green and maybe slightly agricultural, but northern La Pampa and southern Cordoba, I think, make quite a bit of sense for this. But you always have to consider that it could just be some random Buenos Aires, because like, road angles are pretty useful for Argentina, like Santa Fe road angle or Cordoba road angles or La Pampa road angles, but essentially Buenos Aires has every single road angle possible, so it's not really gridded that well, so it's always possible that it is there. Now, I don't see any Buenos Aires poles or anything, but this is kind of just one where you might have to hedge or something, but Stefan ends up making a good guess and winning the game on that. I do have to say, though, that was a really tough location, and I might have gone around where Lero did. So, yeah. Alright, this was the final Argentina location in the World Cup, and it came in game 3, moving game in the finals between Debre and Radu. And this one was a pretty free round, I would say. These trees lined up against the road, I don't really know how to explain them, but they reminded me a lot of what you sometimes see in southern Cordoba, maybe northern La Pampa, or central to western BA. Not something you would typically find in Santa Fe, Entre Rios, or everywhere in or like northern Cordoba / northern Buenos Aires. That being said, We do have another really good meta. As you can see on Deborah's screen, the compass. He's pointed directly south, and we are going straight. So it is very gridded. That is very common in the Pampa, and I guess Cordoba as well. And then we have the white car front blur, which makes even more sense. It's kind of all over Cordoba, so it makes sense for southern Cordoba, but it's also important to know that this car meta is in northern La Pampa on a few smaller roads. So that's kind of what you're left with the car and with the landscape. Obviously, I think they were growing corn, so Cordoba, although this is not Cordoba. They do get a town name, Coronel Hilario Lagos, not something I would say I'm familiar with, but I think once you have the region down, you can scan pretty well for that. I think Deborah missed it. He was scanning a bit too far south. Router was scanning a bit too far east, northeast. But with the road angle, everything else, I'm pretty sure it's north-south road angle again, at least, or pretty similar to it. Max north, La Pampa makes quite a bit of sense. And yeah, that ends it off. I hope you liked this video. Let me know if you want me to make more Argentina or country-specific videos. And yeah, thanks for watching.